Good afternoon. It's the Phenomenal STEMist. How are you guys doing? Let me put this up on my page. And I'm going to go early today because I have my Kappa STEM program around the time that I usually do Phenomenal STEMist. So I'm going to do that right now. I hope some of you will be able to join me this early. Okay. We're talking about stage 3 breast cancer today. Stage 3. So if you remember, I was teaching you that cancer has 4 stages. And the first 2 stages I discussed the past 2 weeks. Just to remind you, my name is Dr. Maya Byfield. I am a professor of biology, biomedical scientist, received my bachelor's from Oakwood College, now University, in biology, and my master's in the biomedical sciences, and my PhD in molecular pharmacology. That's a big way of saying cell biology. I studied the way cells responded to the environment, um, specialized things that communicated with cells, and the mechanisms inside cells and how they respond to their environment and drugs. So the design of the cell, I studied that greatly. I went on to do my a postdoc in neuroscience. I focused more on neurons, but my background comes from cell biology, especially when it's related to diabetes and cancer. So I know a little bit about how cells work and how they dysfunction, and that's what cancer is. Cancer is the uncontrollable growth of deadly cells, and it's the cells that divide the most that are at high risk. So the most commonly known cancers are carcinomas. Those are the ones that are found in the epithelium, that their epithelial cells, like the top layer of your skin is your epidermis. They're constantly dividing to replace, when you rub off your skin in the shower, so you have to constantly replace it. So cells that divide and divide, they for replacement or for growth or for development, they're at risk of somehow going bad and dividing when they shouldn't. So your prostate, your stomach, colon, pancreas, a lot of these cells are epithelium. Breast, everybody focuses on breast cancer month in October, but that's just one type of gland. Breasts have glands in them that are at risk of dividing uncontrollably, your mammary glands. But the deadliest cancer isn't breast cancer. I believe it's still lung cancer, because the epithelium of your lung is constantly exposed to dangerous chemicals that would cause the lungs to somehow dysfunction and start dividing when they shouldn't. That's what cancer is. There's sarcomas and blastomas. They're rarer because those cells don't normally divide, but when they do, they cause cancers too. And if they do divide, then they're most likely going to be malignant. Sometimes your skin cells can divide and not necessarily be dangerous. They're not dangerous because they form moles instead. People have a lot of moles on their face. Those are actually tumors, right? But they're benign tumors that change and start growing uncontrollably, but somehow are not dangerous. Why? They're not dangerous because they're not in threat of leaving. They're not leaving. See, difference between a benign tumor and a malignant tumor, or a mole versus skin cancer, is that the mold just starts to grow a lot but stays put. Malignant cancers, you see that? You see what's happening? They're starting to invade other tissues. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Stage 3 cancer is when they're invading They're invading. That's dangerous now. They're growing so much. This is an example of stage 3 breast cancer. You see the epithelial tissue, the normal epithelial tissue, they're starting to somehow grow uncontrollably, get really big, much bigger than normal, and not just stay just much bigger than normal in the breast. They're starting to invade other tissues. They're starting to move. And now, right next to the breast in the circulatory system are your blood vessels and your lymph nodes. And somehow they have left the breast and they've jumped into the lymph nodes. What happened? Some cancer, like breast cancer, is genetics. That's why those of you, I'm getting my mammogram on Friday. I've turned 40 this year. And so it's so important for women to get their mammogram. I've gotten one before. It's not a pleasing experience, but I had to get one. My grandmother died of breast cancer. My mother's mother. It's in my maternal line. Not only my mother's mother, but my mother's first cousin, my mother's sister's daughter, passed away of breast cancer. My mother's cousin's daughter has breast cancer. It's heavily in my maternal line. And since it's very heavy in my maternal line, I had to get a mammogram at 35 years old. It's not fun. And I had to do both. I had to get a mammogram, a diagnostic mammogram. I had to get ultrasound and regular mammogram. It can be a scary experience, especially when you know what's in your family. My mom does it all the time, and this will be my second time. But it's important because, if you catch it early, first stage, remember, they're just growing a lot over here. You could just pick it out or even do something non-invasive, get rid of it. Even stage 2, it's growing up, it's getting bigger, but it's still there. But once it starts to leave, all bets are off. Stage 3, and it's not just the breast cancer. As I said before, breast cancer is not the most common type of cancer. Lung cancer is, I believe. And that's because so many people are putting chemicals in the environment through smoking, through cars, through all kinds of stuff. There's chemicals in the environment. And when we breathe in those chemicals, we damage our lung cells and they start looking like this. They start growing like this. And what happens is it can get metastatic. It can either do damage to the lung itself, at least with the breast is not that important for life. It's not important for life. But if you have a lot of cells growing in your lungs, stage 2 can be deadly. Just having too many cells in your lungs is a bad thing. But on top of that, now it's starting to leave. It's starting to leave. That's stage 3 breast cancer. I see a couple people watching me. Hope you let me know who you are. So what do you do to save yourself? You've gone from having a stage 1 where it's just growing a little bit to stage 2, it's growing a lot, but it's still home in the area, the original area. We call that the primary tumor. But what do you do about stage 3 tumors? The question is, how do these cells leave? What's going on? Well, scientifically, it's amazing. No disrespect to those of you who've lost close people with cancer. I myself, I was very close to my grandmother. Very close to my grandmother. So there's no disrespect to the loss. But as a scientist, It's an amazing process. These cells are amazing. Look what they're doing. So the small tumor, that's, remember, like the stage one or stage one, is just growing. And then it gets larger. But look what stage 2 cancer starts doing. This is why it's important to get them early. When they tell you find out early, get your mammogram, because if you can catch it at small tumor, just get rid of these terrible things. But if you don't catch them, look what they're doing. They are sending messages to the cells of the blood vessels. Look at this. The cancer cells are sending messages to the blood vessels and calling the blood vessels over. It's amazing. The science behind it is amazing. So look what's happening. The bloodstream is far away from the breast, or the cancer. Let's just say cancer in general, wherever the cancer is. But the cancer needs food. The cancer needs the glucose from the bloodstream. The cancer needs oxygen so that they can now grow massively. So how does it get the glucose from the bloodstream? Just like our cells, our normal cells need glucose. That's why we have a circulatory system. That's why we have nutrition in our bloodstream flowing all over our body. The cancer cells send a message to our bloodstream, and the blood vessel cells. And the blood vessel cells come to the cancer cell, and it starts to send blood that was meant for our normal cells. It starts to go to give nutrition to the cancer cells. We call that the process angiogenesis. Angiogenesis is a normal process that when you need more blood to flow to certain areas, angiogenesis, meaning you make more blood vessels to go to the area. So let's say you start to work out and your muscles need oxygen, they need more food. You will start to increase your blood vessels to the areas where you are working out. Angiogenesis. It's a normal process. The cancer cells hijack what happens normally for good and starts to use it for bad. So now the bloodstream is moving to the cancer and making it huge. And not only is it making it huge, look what happens. The cancer cells jump into the blood vessel and start to move. Wow. So not only do they use it to get energy, they use it as a pathway of escape. So the term, if you've ever heard the term metastasis, what makes a cancer malignant is that it leads to metastasis or metastatic spread, meaning it has left the area and it has jumped into the bloodstream and it's going someplace else. So now it's no longer in, for instance, for breast cancer, in the breast. It has jumped in the bloodstream. It is moving to the lymph nodes. It is moving all over the body. So when you hear people say it has been found in multiple lymph nodes, it tells you that is stage 3 cancer. It has already left the primary tumor. You know why pancreatic cancer is so deadly? Because the pancreas is in the midst of lots of blood vessels. So they are really good at doing this. And it quickly spreads. You ever heard of somebody say, man, they had cancer, they found out they had cancer, and then they just died? A lot of the times, if they've gotten to the point where they can just jump into the bloodstream and quickly spread, it's a wrap. So what they try to treat it, they do therapies. Last week I told you about the therapies where it's hormonal, where they try to stop the cells from dividing. Many of the cells are dividing because they're getting messages from hormones to tell them to divide. So they basically give anti-hormonal drugs to stop the hormones from telling the blood cells to divide. But now it's worse. Now we can't just give hormone drugs, because you give the hormone drugs, you may try to shrink the tumor, but some of them have already escaped. So you want to also give angiogenic drugs. So that's why some of you may be taking these types of drugs. You see these type of drugs in here. That's what your doctor is ordering. He's basically trying to stop the blood vessels, from going to the cancer and giving nutrition to the cancer, and also giving a way of escape for the cancer. It wants to stop that. So those are therapies to try to stop metastasis. That's basically it, guys. I saw a couple of you join. If you have questions, this would be the time to ask. If not, feel free to ask a little later, and then I'll answer you. Sorry, I had to do it early today, but I have the CAPA mentorship program today. I am the Phenomenal STEMist. I hope I've helped you to understand the biology of cancer. It's a deadly disease, but it is an interesting disease. Next week, last week of cancer, stage 4. Have a good evening. Follow me on YouTube.